Hello, welcome in. Just working on something a little bit different today. Using a watercolor wash with some ultramarine blue. Excuse me. I've got a background that was painted with a thin wash of granulating blue and lamp black. And in the previous pebble drawings, I've got the background completely finished, and then I take the pen and outline the shape sort of there. I thought I'd switch it up a little bit this time. Look for the shapes in the wash and define them with another layer of wash. And after that dries down, I'll go in with the pen and we'll see how this comes out. It's been kind of a long week last week here in September. And I guess I'm easily trainable because I was really set up to do a little of art with friends on a Friday afternoon. Just feels like a nice way to end the week. Take a little quiet time, mix up a little paint, get a little paper. And put my attention on something other than all those busy thoughts in the head. They really can run us sometimes. Hi, Dan K. Welcome in. How was your week? Good to see you. I am doing well. We've got nice sunny weather out here in Oregon. Felt like every time I tried to get a live stream going this week, I had some connectivity issues. Probably have a lot of people trying to stay in touch with the storms and down in the southeast part of the country. I don't know. Or solar flares. I like to blame everything that's wonky on solar flares. Exhausting, he says. Must have been staying out of mischief then, huh? Keeping busy with work, winding down all of those summer activities, right? It's solar flares. It just messes everything up. So, do you want to peek at the finished painting? I think I'm finished. I took it off the watercolor paper block, so I think it's finished. Isn't that fun? I added in some little red pieces of jasper and The coloring in the little outlined pebbles went a lot faster than I thought it was going to go. I had tried to get set up for a live stream and was going to do this on live stream, but I just, whatever reason, couldn't. The signal wouldn't hold long enough. The live just kept going to. It was just buffering a lot. So that's the thing about these. There's always more paper, always more paint. So, did you work on any extra interesting cars this week, or just kind of all late model American made, or anything kind of fun? Any classic cars? Yeah, Dan says he's always staying out of mischief. Mischief is a young man's game, to be sure. All right, actually, now I think about it, I hate to make you talk about work if that's. If you'd rather let us know if you've got any interesting plans for the weekend. Hopefully you've got enough good weather holding to have a late season barbecue. So I think I mentioned that I tried to think of a polite way to phrase this. An ex-boyfriend of mine, we had a parting of the ways a while back, but I was with this fella for several years, and he had a 1966 Mustang coupe that was had lived in Hawaii, so the elements can be a bit hard on cars with all that salt, and just like a car that's that old, just it's might as well buy a boat, right? You know, the quintessential boat that's a hole in the water into which you throw your money, and it had been garaged, but the fella who had owned it had come into his later years, and he had not driven it much, and it just didn't get that daily love and care that classic cars really need if they're to stay viable. And so it was really, my point was, it was a challenge to find a shop that was willing to work on them and to work on it. And we quite often had to take it out of town to find somebody who really it was kind of important to find someone who loved that type of car and knew, you know, they're not really complex, but we just found that if the mechanic didn't have a love for that type of a classic car, the work done was not what we were looking for. But we did find a handful of guys. We found one guy who actually was just really loved the 60s era Mustangs, so he always just did beautiful, beautiful work on it. And we tooled around and that went all over, drove all over the place. It was a lot of fun when you're driving a car like that. People wave and smile, and you never have to worry about it getting vandalized in a parking lot when you're in a restaurant, because you come out and there's always there's a couple of guys standing beside it talking about when they had a Mustang, or back when they knew somebody who had one. The classic cars are a bit of upkeep, but boy, they just make up for it in personality and in fun. Dan is going to be doing some woodworking and designing a table for a group of D&D gamers. Well, that sounds like fun all around. Yep. Yeah, you know that you're in trouble with the car when they come walking to the car with the diagnostic thing looking for the computer to plug into. You're not going to find that here. I love maps. I use a lot of maps in my art journals and my collage work. It's something very I don't know what the word is, but I could sit and look at a book of atlas of maps, and I love to look at maps and plan trips, and it's some of our maps and Bibles are some of the oldest things that people put on paper and preserve over the years. Yeah, looking for the computer for the car. It's under the tailpipe. It's right beside the blinker fluid receptacle. Oh, those old car jokes never get old, do they? My dad was a mechanic, but he was also pretty old school in that the girls belonged on one side of the garage door and boys belonged on the other. So I think if he had been more open-minded about it, I might have become a person who was interested in mechanical work, and maybe even did a little bit of that. Boy, one thing about watercolor is it does teach you lessons in patience. if I rush this and I put a shape up against where it's wet, it's going to bleed together, and that'll be that'll not be the effect I'm going for. So I'm having to move with some deliberation and more patience than I want to exercise today, but that's okay. Right? Uh, I think when you get women in trade programs, in some ways we almost have to work harder to get taken seriously, or to maybe to feel like we're not out of place. Plus, a woman who wants to be a mechanic, right? She probably has to uh, have a lot of love for that to be able to overcome the social obstacles. So I'm not surprised. Dan says sometimes women in the shop will be working circles around men in the shop. Yeah, but I have to disagree with you that the girls are causing the trouble with the boys in the shops. I think the girls are probably okay. I think it's possible that some of those boys might not have the best of manners. I don't know if you remember this song from the 50s or 60s, or it might even be older than that, but it was anything you can do, I can do better. It was a duet. And, no, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. I can do anything better than you. And I personally don't think that skill is gendered, but we socially sort people out, and sometimes we keep boys out of, when we gender activities, we keep people out of things that they might be really skilled at. They might have a real knack for things. I've got a younger brother who was in one of the first groups of boys who were allowed into the home ec classes in our school district. So when I was in school, girls took home ec and boys took shop. End of story. And then, as it often takes with things, somebody filed a lawsuit, and then a female student was allowed into shop. And within 5 years, they had changed the curriculum so that all students took a semester of shop and a semester of economics. So my brother learned to use a sewing machine. And for a period of time, he was doing all kinds of creative stuff. It never really occurred to him that that was something that was just for girls. And he made stuffed animals and tote bags, and it was quite skilled. I want to see a video of that, Dan K. Hi, Vicky Noguri. Welcome in. Hello, hello. How's your Friday treating you? Assuming it's not Saturday where you are. It's still just, I think it's always going to blow my mind how YouTube exists in all time zones and simultaneously. I am doing well. Thank you for asking. We had a little bit of rain here in Oregon this week, so that was nice. Everything's just greened up and looking kind of lush. It was looking sort of dried out and not like fall, you know, when fall comes and things start to get crispy, the leaves on the trees and the grasses. It was just looking end of summer dried out. So having a little moisture just washes the dust off the place, and we've got a few leaves just starting to put on their fall colors. I've got a blackberry bramble in my backyard that is just the very tips of just a few of the leaves are starting to turn scarlet. I love the way foliage changes for the fall. How was your week? Was it a good week? Did you get some art underway? Yeah, there's nothing like it having a home ec kitchen full of 12 and 13-year-olds. Dan says he took home ec in school with shop class, and the cooking was always a good time. Yeah, I remember my home ec class being just right before lunch, so everybody, you know, were teenagers with the hollow legs and the bottomless pit for a stomach at that age. And we would get to make muffins or popovers or some sort of, I don't know, a lot of quick bread. A lot of stuff you could get completed in 35 or 40 minutes, I guess. But I just remember whatever we cooked just tasted delicious, and now I look back and I was like, of course it tasted delicious. We'd been going all morning and it was nearly lunchtime for us. I'm just taking a minute to look at these. I really like how that, isn't it fun how this blue granulates out and it just makes these wonderful patterns? I don't think I've ever picked up a rock that had much blue in it. Things like sodalite and what's the other blue one? Lapis lazuli. You don't really find those laying on the ground, at least not where I live. I think especially blue lapis is found in the Middle East, that part of the world. Still trying to find my footing with what looks best on the camera, and when it's just something you're looking at with the naked eye, there are a lot of subtleties to appreciate, but not everything translates as well with particularly a phone camera. So I wonder sometimes if I'm working with things that are maybe not bright enough, but for today it's going to be these denim-y gray colors. Almost reminds me of like a favorite pair of jeans. I love the way indigo weathers. And I actually have a watercolor that is made of indigo. Maybe I'll do another layer with that. Yeah. I know, you guys are all here for the sparkling the sparkling narration and dialogue, right? Well, that's why I'm here. I could just be sitting at the bench talking to the cat, but I do like it better when there's people to spend a little time with. I really appreciate that. Appreciate you all. People who just hang out and people we kind of we refer sometimes to those people that are just hanging out, spending time as lurkers, and there's the connotation to that word lurker that implies that it's some nefarious activity. And if you're here and you're hanging out and you don't feel like chatting, I just want you to know I'm glad for your company here and don't feel obligated that you have to chat. But please know that you're appreciated. Okay, I feel like I'm getting the hang of this a little bit. It's going a little bit quicker. Of course, when it comes time to put that first shape in, boy, I could just take time to go make a sandwich and go do some chores, and it's a little nerve-wracking when you. Okay, whew. I'm gonna do this slowly so I don't give anybody too much motion sickness, but I'm gonna turn it upside down so I can get to this dry end and we can work from there. I have a, if it was an ordinary cat, Dance's, though it scrolled, somebody said something about the cat enjoying the attention, and I adopted a cat that was nearly feral when I first brought her home. She had been, we don't really know, they have a bunch of stories at the Humane Society about what happened, but so I don't know all of the details, but apparently she was confiscated from a hoarding situation and she was found in very, very poor health. And so she wasn't able to just be put up for adoption right away. She was in foster care for a couple of months. And when I got her, I think she had spent 2 months locked in a kennel because there was she had no muscle tone. She was just like a towel to pick her up. And she hadn't been socialized very much, so she did not, she was not a lap cat. She didn't want to be groomed. About the only thing she would tolerate was she had to get shots because she was diabetic. So whoever fostered her just didn't socialize her, or it's hard to know. Cats kind of do things at their own pace. So maybe she just wasn't putting up with it. Maybe she had a really friendly, nice foster person, but it was probably 3 years before she would let me hold her and before she would be in my lap. I could pick her up, but I couldn't sit down. I could hold her up on my shoulder. And to this day, I can't put her over my right shoulder. The only way she'll let me hold her is if I have her kind of up and draped across with her front feet up over my left shoulder. My cat's a funny person. Yeah. Yeah, Vicky. Yeah, I know, and I think it has to do with the signal strength in my area, because sometimes of day it's much better. So if I'm streaming at 3 a.m. in the morning, we get a pretty good picture. But I'm trying to stream sometimes during the day so that people will get a chance to join us. And then what I try to do is to always upload a high quality picture to my community tab. So if you're watching what's going on and it's fuzzy, and I know that's frustrating, and until I can invest in a camera, it's probably not a problem I can solve. But I do put up a picture of what I was working on, so you can get a chance to have a look at it there. I am on the west coast of the United States in Oregon. So right now it's about 5 o'clock-ish. And normally this time of day, on a Friday, there's another live streamer who does a craft stream, and I I participate in that. I get on the panel there and kind of do what I'm doing, and we just talk about the week and what's going on and encourage other people. But and that's Eric Rader's Joints, Drinks, and Crafts chat, but he wasn't running it this week. I think he had kind of an epic interview yesterday, and he's been out protesting and keeping himself busy, so I knew we had a little slot in here today where folks do have a bit of a habit of coming in and working on some craft stuff, so. And I was all set up in preparation for that, and then it didn't go, so I thought, what the heck, I got a time and there's folks wanting some art, so here you go. But I'm guessing next week he'll be back with his stream, so. And I'm trying to get. I realized last week that I was already streaming, and I hadn't updated my community post to let people know to tune in over there. So, but I do try to put that up ahead of time on my community page to say, hey, we've got something going over on Eric Rader's channel, and to put a link to it. So. It'll be a long time before anybody ever accuses me of being a professional YouTuber. It's pretty informal. You're in Ireland, from Ukraine. Oh, golly. Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. I think you've been in my chats before, because I do. My little brain just went, oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm so sorry that you had to take refuge from your homeland. I am, I don't know why, but I guess I am surprised that that conflict has gone on for so long. I really felt like it would resolve in a matter of weeks or months. Yeah, I'm glad you're safe now, too. So how do you like Ireland? Are there I know Ukraine has such a rich culture with the foods and the are you able to find the things that are the the better reminders of home, or is it like a whole new world there? And did you I think mm, thinking about languages, right? And they speak Gaelic and English there. Rainy and dark. I'm told that England, in particular, that the climate in England is a lot like Oregon. Oregon's on the 45th parallel, so I think climate wise, quite a few parts of the UK are similar to the Pacific Northwest. Oh, goodness. Okay. Thanks, Adam. I knew that was wrong. It came out of my mouth. I'm just like, it's Friday. Cal, no, tell me what it is. You're bringing the Adam is bringing the geography and lessons this week, and I appreciate it. Okay, that didn't seem fancy enough. That was what went through my head the first time. Just Irish. They speak the Irish. I was doing a little genealogy because now I'm an old lady, right? So we have to do the genealogy. So first time in my life this spring I was looking into things, and um, my great grandfather, the family always thought he was Danish. When I got into the genealogy records, it turns out uh, when he came into the country, his documents all say he was Irish. So I know people who do genealogy and who have Irish roots are just like, this is the county my family's from, and really know a lot of the Irish history. And like, because we didn't really think we had any Irish ancestors, nobody's paid any attention to it. So kind of went, oh, well, that's like a homework assignment now. I'd like to I'd like to do one of those 23andMe, maybe not that brand, but one of those genealogy tests and just see what the information really is. I know, Dan. If I could just get through the week without just sticking my foot in my mouth, it'd be that'd be a first. Well, at least I didn't call them Celtics, right? Well, I am not wading into stores. That that's a pitfall I know to avoid. So, Adam, how was your week? Did you have a good week? Good plans. Good plans for the. I know. There's probably an Irish volleyball league that I'm just. Would they take a break from hurling? Oh my golly. You guys are going to get me in mischief. It's just a matter of time. A level week. That's terrific. Not always easy to accomplish a level week without a lot of chaos. Vicky, thank you for chatting and spending some time. I appreciate you. I hope we'll see you again. Sleep well. Rest well. Alrighty, how about, I think, a little green? That English gets easier. It must be tremendously challenging to uproot to a new place and have an entirely new language to have to get the hang of. Alrighty, I'm gonna go with this one. It's one of my vintage pigments called Terra Verde, Green Earth, and it's got some interesting characteristics. When it dries, it gets a sort of a glaze of a white or a lighter colored green on it, so. Ooh, too thick. And I'm hoping it will get some nice mottled areas and just bring a little bit of that magic. Well, so far I like what it's doing. Just realized the studio's gotten dark. That is the downside of fall. The days start getting shorter, and I like the temperature drop, but I miss the daylight. Adam says, I love your rock formations. They always suggest interdependence. So fitting. Thank you. And Dan K asks, when are we going to do another pick 3? And that is, I love the pick 3. I love the fun of it. And I've got some papers set up. And what I was waiting for was when we had a chat where we had, or a live stream where we had, 6 or 8 people in it. So, one of these days soon. Yeah, I like the pick 3. It's a lot of fun. Kitty is making a demand. Is it dinner time for you? Is it dinner time? If I bribe you with some chow, will you be peaceable? Alrighty. If you guys will just give me about 30 or 40 seconds, I'll go get her cat food. Go, go. Yes? Yes? Excuse me, buddy. Oh. Okay, I really like that green. always fun when things turn out a little bit better than you had hoped. I think of watercolors being very mysterious and unpredictable, and it is in some respects because it's each color behaves a little bit differently because of the pigments, you know, in each one are different. You've been along for the ride in these last few weeks as I've really just been able to take a deep dive into this media and explore it a bit and become more familiar with it. Knowing me, about the time I get it figured out, I'll reach a level of boredom and I'll think, well, now it's time to go back to screen printing. Or I find I'm getting better as I age, though. That is one of the things that I do appreciate about this phase of life. Because when I was young, I would get bored with things and tire of them very quickly and move on, and it always felt like I was just being a bit of a dilettante about whatever I was working on. And the older we get, the more our capacity to slow down and look at things in greater depth, that capacity increases. And I really do find that an enjoyable part of this phase. I literally can't remember the last time I was bored with something. And I think as a young person, I can remember particularly kind of the teenage years just feeling just bored. What do you want to do? I'm bored. And now, instead of feeling bored, I find I'm much more likely to be curious about something and interested in exploring something. Well, what do you guys find to be a good aspect of your life as you've moved through your years? I'm curious. I feel like I'm running out of paper here today. Ooh. So Dan, do you have more colors in mind for the next pick? Adam. Adam says, realizing that vanilla is far superior to chocolate. Um, wow. Yeah, about 3 years ago, I decided that that my favorite actually was vanilla when it came to ice cream. A good, yeah, not just your run of the mill, but it's tough to find a good vanilla. But there's just, and for the rest of my life, I would have said chocolate beat it hands down. But either chocolate changed or vanilla finally, I finally developed a good enough taste, a good enough palate to really be able to appreciate vanilla. That's wild. Dance has the ability to slow down and focus. I know. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I'd have said anything but vanilla. Oh, yeah. Just and then I began to appreciate the flavors that were vanilla with other things included. And one day I found myself just buying a gallon of ice cream that was vanilla with no chocolate chips, no bits of fruit, no. I, I don't know what happened. It's just that's I just it's just making me it's just making me grin to think about it. What a funny thing. Okay. There it is. I've been looking at this space and just take a deep breath and get the paint in there. There we go. Hmm. I will, I will absolutely cop to that. It's vanilla, not vanilla. Degraded beans. I feel like I need some green up in this corner. I'm just not seeing where it should go. I'll just awkwardly come in and drop it right there. If it's wrong, it's just paper. Mm. Oh, whoops. Alrighty. Well, this is going to need a little bit of time to dry down. So I've just proven that to myself by sticking my finger in wet paint. You guys interested in a pebble drawing? I'll do an outline and see if I can find any blanks ready to go. Shuffle, shuffle. So I've started a few more. Looking in some other kind of fall colors here. You know, we've got the last pick 3. Shall we finish up these bad boys? Let's do that. Let's give a little tour of the work we've done. I think this is the last of the group from the pick 3 that we did a while back, so it's always nice to finish things up before we start a new group. And Dan says for pick 3 we should show one of my paint board things and have people pick 3 from one board. Paint board things. Oh, these guys? The swatches? Yeah, I have been just going to town adding. We'll just give you a little teaser of the we've filled in all down the side all of these new blues, and it's just an exercise in least visible difference when it comes to these pinks and crimsons. And yeah, so now I think you see why I talk about being on probation and not telling myself I don't need to buy more paint. Yeah. Well, boy, there's a lot of small little so I don't know if you were here the other night. I bought a whole new whack of pens and then managed to just mix them in with all the old pens. So I saw an online tutorial for a way to open up these pens, because they're really not meant to be refilled, but of course, as people do, we ingeniously try to figure out ways to get a little more mileage out of the pen. So instead of just chucking them in the trash, because it's a lot of plastic and stuff, and I thought, well, maybe I would try refilling them, but I managed to get them all just put into the same container. So now, every time I open a pen, of course, it's nearly out of ink. If that's the biggest frustration I have this week, it'll be a win, though. And I should learn when I'm watching tutorials to skip and just watch the last 45 seconds where the kid says, now I don't know if this is going to work or if this is going to last for very long, but I got ink inside the pen. Like, oh, great. Just made a huge mess. Oh, this one's forcing me to slow down a little bit. I have just been rocketing through these the last couple of weeks. But the benefit is actually not to... The object is not to get fast. The object is to slow down and activate the visual cortex and try to get the brain out of that logical thinking mode where thoughts get anxiously turned over and over. So to just try to get a different brainwave pattern going for a while, activate the old pattern recognition, and sometimes when you can just get your brain out of gear when it's perseverating on something, and you can just get yourself to take a break, that can really help to derail anxiety and undesirable thinking patterns. There's a utility for everything that our brains do. We wouldn't do it if it wasn't useful in some respect, but we can fall into thinking patterns that are not functional for the task at hand. So I like to try to get my brain into a state where it's almost calmly idling. It's not anticipating the next task, it's just warmed up, ready to do the next task, whatever that might be. And it's not especially easy to stay in that relaxed but ready state. So we have to cultivate that. And I have found periods of my life where I tried to just push through using frenetic energy, and I certainly was able to perform at a high level, but I also burned out, just flamed out spectacularly after pushing myself in that way, and discovered that if I wanted to be able to perform consistently over longer periods of time, I really needed to take my mindset in hand and start to cultivate something that was more effective. So we can always fine-tune our performance. And I find that again with the aging thing, not to harp on it, but as we get older, we don't have the reserves, we don't have the resilience necessarily like we might have had in abundance when we were young. You could just burn yourself out doing things and pick up the next day and go at it again. And so I think that's maybe the reckoning of the the midlife crisis, right? Where you realize, hey, I've been doing things a particular way, and I just can't perform the way that I was able to when I was younger, or that I want to now. And there's a bit of a reckoning where you adjust your ways a little bit, maybe not change them. I'm really just enjoying that teal color against that purple. He did have very good taste in colors. Dan says the person who picked really knows what they're doing. We do. Adam says we get more discerning and efficient with age. Yeah, and I don't think it's wisdom necessarily that makes us do that, Adam. I think it's necessity. It's like there's just no option except to become more efficient. It's like my knees won't let me do anything. Like I can't go up and down the stairs 17 times. I've got to think about it when I'm upstairs. Do I have everything I need before I go downstairs? Yeah, I don't know what all we would accomplish if we actually came into our young bodies with awareness of past lives. I don't know. What do you guys think about that whole past lives idea? I think if such a thing is possible, I don't know that I ever had any because just spent most of this lifetime learning things the hard way. It seems like if I'd had a past life, I would have picked up a little something along the way instead of just doing everything the hard way. Optimization. That is, I am here for optimization. Adam says, necessity is the lifeblood of optimization. Yeah, that's a great question to ask on anytime you're working on anything is how can I optimize this? Which is it's a step beyond efficiency, isn't it? Robert James, hello. Dan K says, if he could go back and keep the knowledge you have now, he would do so many things the exact same way. Same, absolutely. There's very few things that, yeah, very few things that, because it's some of the hardest and most difficult, painful, ridiculous things I learned skills that just revolutionized my life. I didn't take a hard lesson ever that I didn't just pick myself up and go, well, I'm really gonna take a different direction, and those different directions have um, kept me from living life in places or with people or in jobs that were just misery. So, ready for the weekend. Ready for the weekend. I don't. I've been not working for many years, so Uh, I don't get really like excited about the weekend because I can do what I want throughout the week. So, but when I was young, my goodness, to get to the weekend and not have to do what somebody else had, not have to be on somebody else's schedule was incredible. Now, when I get to weekends, I think about like Thursdays and Fridays. I think, oh, I've got to get to the store so I don't have to go buy groceries on Saturday afternoon. To me, that's a good weekend, not having to go to the grocery store. Oh, Dan says he would have a rocking stock portfolio. I don't know. I'm kind of, not kind of. I have dyscalculia, and to me, when you talk about stocks and then you start talking about numbers, and my brain just starts to vibrate like a beach jellyfish. So, oh, maybe if I could go back and get diagnosed with dyscalculia when I was actually in school instead of in my last year of college, and then I could have gotten some different education and maybe learned some math. That would have been good. A youth hunt. Are you deer? Are you hunting deer? It's kind of deer season in the fall, I think. That the idea of youth. Well, I don't know. Some kids are really responsible, but the idea of youth out with rifles and um, I think I would want more than just a hunter orange vest. But then, think back to hunter safety class, and then most of the kids that were in there were taking it pretty seriously, so it's probably okay. Better a youth who's trying to do a good thing than an old guy who's out half a gallon of Jack Daniels into it. I'm not the biggest fan of venison, but I do enjoy elk. We have elk out here in Oregon, so we've got elk hunts. And when I lived up in Alaska, people are, quite a few people hunt moose, which is a whole different type of meat. Oh, wow. So Robert James is helping organize a youth hunt for children of vets to go. Are, so are these kids that are, is this their, it's not their first hunt, they're just hunters who are young, right? Yeah, what sorts of game do you hunt in your part of the country, Robert? I think we've got deer in most places in the United States that, um, for anybody that's out there just cringing about hunting, we have deer populations that just are really on the verge of being out of control. So we do make, we do have hunting seasons in a lot of states, and we just have to cull the population down because we've got, uh, diseases in the deer population that there's no other way to manage it really, except for hunting. Mm. So out here in Oregon, we've got, of course, lots of deer, elk. Over in the eastern part, there's antelope and bighorn sheep. Um, what else? Lots of game bird hunting. Um, every once in a while, we'll have a black bear season, but not. I kind of think when I was a kid, like there were a lot of years where there wasn't a black bear season, but now I think we fairly regularly do that. But when I lived up in Alaska, there's a lot of people that live, a subsistence lifestyle where they're living off the land. So there's a lot of hunting, fishing, and quite a big moose population in Alaska. So, and moose is tasty, but it's very little fat, so it is super dry. No one would really put a moose steak on the grill and call that good eating because you just, um, we don't. You'd need shark teeth for that. It's just some tough going, but it can be made into really delicious sausage and a lot of other ways to prepare it. Mm. It's kind of. Have you had elk? Like it's. If you think about venison to elk, and then like elk to moose, it's not particularly gamey. Um, it does have its own sort of flavor, but it just needs to have a lot of, fat added to it when you make it into sausage or burger. And there's also a lot of meat from, so your yield is really pretty good for the animals that you take. Wow, I never really know where the topic is going to go when I hit the live button. It's always something different. Wild hogs. Now, that seems... I've got a friend who lives in Hawaii, and they've got his backyard just gets torn up from these wild pigs that come through, and he's a bow hunter, so he doesn't even have to have... Now that I think about it, he's a bit of an outlaw, so I don't know, but I believe that he doesn't have to have a tag for it. So if they're in tearing his property up, he he's mostly disabled, but he can still get the bowstring drawn, and he gets his bow and arrow set up, and he calls his neighbors and says, "Hey, come help me," and he takes the boar and splits the meat with his neighbor, who comes and helps him deal with the things that need to be done, and then they do roast pig right out in the backyard. It's like, he puts these social media posts. He's like, his buddies are watching from the brush. That'll teach him to come raid my garden. It's like, but he shoots him from his deck, which is, I mean, boar hunting with a bow and arrow just strikes me as incredibly dangerous. But to his credit, he doesn't waste any of it. And they are absolutely just a nuisance in Hawaii. They're not part of the natural fauna there, so they're just tearing the heck out of things. Not just people's gardens, but they're pretty hard on the ecosystem. Alrighty. See if there's a little bit of focus. Well, this background has been kicking around over in the bin for a couple of weeks. Every time I looked at it, I wasn't quite sure where to go with it, because it looked like I'd just filled it up with way too much color, and sometimes when things are tangled up looking, you just need to take some time and patience and slow down and just pick it apart, work at it bit by bit. So I'm pretty pleased with that. This was the last one out of the pick 3 that Dan Kay helped with about, I want to say, 3 weeks ago. So I'll get some more squares ready, and we'll do another one of those. We'll pick from the great assortment of colors. And here's another look at this as it dried down. Look at this wonderful mottled effect that we got with that terra verde paint. I'll have to give this a little bit of time and look at it, and I think it needs a third color in there, and I'm not sure if I just want to go wildly reddish orange or if I want to stay in these grays and blues. And then here's just a quick look at the other one I've been working on for the last several days. I put a signature and a date on it, so you know that means it's done. Had a lot of fun with this one. thanks everybody for coming in and spending time. I appreciate you, appreciate your company and your chat. Thank you, Robert James. Thanks for coming in. And Robert James says good night, and I'm going to say good night too. I hope you all have a spectacular weekend. Make time for a little bit of art. Have a lovely bowl of vanilla ice cream, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, everybody. Bye for now.